In the 8-bit era, some developers weren't content with just making slight improvements to their first game, and instead made sequels that were drastically different. The developers of Mario, Zelda, and Castlevania were all guilty of this, and they released sophomore efforts that ended up becoming the black sheep of the franchises. Final Fantasy was no exception, although the second entry in that series stayed in Japan until Origins was released for the PlayStation. Many gamers that experienced Final Fantasy II for the first time were disappointed at just how odd it seemed when compared to other games in the series. A few years later, the games on Origins were ported to the Game Boy Advance as Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls. Besides the bonus of being able to enjoy these games anywhere, some bonus dungeons and a challenging Soul of Rebirth mode was added. When it came time to port these games to the PSP, Square Enix decided to unbundle the two games and release each one individually for the 20th anniversary of the series. Now, if you didn't care for Final Fantasy II in Origins or Dawn of Souls, you're not going to like this version either because not much has changed. But for those people who have never played this game before, let's take a closer look. The story starts off with a group of rebels fighting against an evil empire. Firion, Maria, Guy, and Leon are nearly killed by the Palamecian forces, and when they awaken, Leon is missing. The remaining three try to help take down the Empire and hopefully find Leon in the process. By today's standards, the story may not seem like much, but back when it came out, it was a huge step up from the first game. One thing that does bother me about the plot is the fact that a certain character's reason for doing something isn't explained very well. Other than that, the story and characters are quite enjoyable for such an old game. One feature this game has which ends up being quite annoying is keywords. Whenever you enter a conversation with someone, certain words may be a different color. These are keywords, and you must select the Learn option at the lower left of the screen to learn these terms, and mention them to other characters to advance the story. While this may seem like a neat idea in theory, it ends up becoming quite a nuisance. Nothing is more frustrating than journeying to a town to talk to an NPC and realizing that you forgot to learn the word needed to trigger an event, which means you have to backtrack back to your base, learn the word, and go back, talk to that same character again, and advance the story. Another big change from the first Final Fantasy, and the one that makes people hate this game, is the leveling system. Rather than having a traditional RPG system with experience points, they opted to have stats and spells grow through usage. So if you want your party member to have high defense, they have to be attacked repeatedly by anyone, including allies. A lot of people don't care for this system because it can be exploited very easily, and you can make some ridiculously powerful characters by attacking your own team over and over. I tend to think of it as kind of an interactive difficulty slider, which allows me to make the game as easy or challenging as I want it to be. One note about the spells is that it is much easier to level up magic in this version when compared to the others. Graphics have been upgraded quite nicely for this PSP port. All of Amano's art and the 2D sprites look incredibly sharp on the PSP or on a TV. There's also a great soundtrack from Uematsu. All the songs sound fantastic, although I wish there were more tracks composed for the game. Final Fantasy II is another solid entry in the series, although it will definitely not be for everybody. For some, the keyword system will be a minor annoyance, and others will not like the lack of a traditional experience system. If you can look past those things, you will find a very enjoyable, old-school RPG experience for the PSP. As always, I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you next time.